Absolutely delighted now to be joined by Chief Dan Oates. Chief, welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you for taking the time to talk to us today.
I'm happy to be here.
Now, there's a plenary session, important plenary session on Tuesday about preparing for active shooter attacks. Talk us through what you're going to be focusing on Tuesday.
Well, as you know, this has become one of the most compelling and crucial elements of modern American policing, sadly to say. And more of us have experienced events, and just in the last 2 weeks, there's been a couple of events here in the U.S., and the issues continue to grow. There are challenges around training and having our cops being as prepared as they can possibly be. There's the actual response issues, and as we now have seen, they've become more complex. Sometimes the response considerations now include the danger of explosives or chemical weapons being added to the attack. And then there's the aftermath, the fallout for your community, for your officers, and there are serious consequences. The larger the attack, the more victims that there are. And some of us have been through some really horrific events where the consequences are felt for years, and you have to worry about with your own employees things like PTSD, the aftermath for the community. There's a crucial role for police chiefs to lead the community through these events. So it's a really important plenary session. I know the FBI is going to lead off the session with their recent report and their findings from study of the last 5 or 6 years and all the events, and that's important too, to get that kind of information out to professional police chiefs about the data, and unfortunately there's a lot of data now.
How do you go about preparing officers?
It's extremely difficult. Among the elements you have to consider is the fact that officers are at as high a risk as in any event. These events are over in minutes. Officers have to place themselves at extremely high risk and take less caution to get to where the killing is occurring. And some of the traditional tactical training that we give officers to clear a room and those kinds of things and do it safely don't apply when these kinds of events are happening. So they literally have to run into the line of fire to save people's lives. And training officers to behave that way is a challenge, and to understand what those risks are.
Because some of the active shooting situations that we've analysed before, in many ways, it's changed because officers were saying historically, you know, if an officer responded to a situation that the people there might run away, but now the officers themselves actually become targets more often than not.
Very much so, and there are recent instances where that has occurred. In fact, one of the ways, unfortunately, we've seen that the damage to civilians has stopped is because the bad guy has turned his fire on the officers, and we've suffered significant casualties in that regard. There's another element to all of this, and some of the mass shootings like the one I experienced in Aurora, there's the issue of rescuing the wounded.
Right.
In an environment where you're not sure still whether it's safe, and whether or not every shooter has been identified and the threat eliminated, yet you have critically wounded people. How do you rescue them? How do you get them out of the warm zone or the danger zone? And what's the integration with the medical service, the EMS and fire service, in terms of providing urgent, at the scene, tactical combat care? So there's a need for our profession and the fire service and EMS to develop more and better skills in that regard. So it's a sort of a sad commentary on our society that this has become an absolutely compelling issue for law enforcement and our brethren in the other first responder services that we tackle these issues. So that's why the session's important.
Final question. You talked a little bit there about the aftermath, about healing wounds, if you like, within the community itself, right, and the importance that the police department plays an active role in that. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, when these events occur, the law enforcement leader becomes a face for the community. And there are so many different roles you play, including reassuring the community, but one of them is leading the community beyond the event. Because the community needs to survive and recover and move forward. And your department needs to learn whatever lessons it can learn from it. So we hope to have a discussion about the aftermath and the role, the aftermath of that. Mike Kehoe, from Sandy Hook, from Newtown, Connecticut, is going to be there, I think, specifically to talk about that, the real challenge that he faced in the aftermath of that event, and the role of leading your cops, leading your community through a terrible tragedy. There's an initiative underway with the IACP to deal with precisely that, and Mike is leading a work group that's developing some thoughts and best practices on that that's going to be shared with the IACP membership.
Well, thank you ever so much indeed for taking the time to talk to us today. I hope the session on Tuesday goes well.
Thank you. I'm sure it will.